welcome to this week's episode of Notes from Chicago. Today I am so excited. We have Jen Ellison. She is the Vice President of Creative from Second City. So we're so excited to talk to her about what she does there, about the history of Second City, about all of the things that Second City has going on today. Jen, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is awesome.
What do you love about Chicago?
Oh my gosh, so many things. I've lived here for almost 30 years. And I'm originally from North Carolina. And so we didn't have, we had seasons, but just not the same sort of extreme of seasons. And I'm probably one of those freaks that's like, I love winter, but I really do. One of my favorite things about Chicago is the way the seasons affect the city. Like, it's winter, everybody complains, it's awful, and then summer comes and everybody forgets about the winter, and it's the most beautiful city in the world in the summer. It's an incredible place. I love the seasons here because they are so pronounced. We didn't have that as much, so it's one of the things I love the most.
Love that. I can completely relate. I grew up in the South also, and I still feel like I've lived here for 20 plus years, and I still feel like I have not adjusted to the winter. Every winter I'm like, oh, my Southern blood, even though I've not lived in the South for over 30 years.
Yeah, right? Where did you grow up?
Tennessee. Memphis.
Oh, right. We're right there with each other. So, yeah.
I'd love for you to just take a moment and talk a little bit about Second City, what it is and what it does.
Second City is probably the best known sketch and improv institution in the world. We started in 1959 in Hyde Park when a bunch of students got together and started doing living newspaper and just deciding to improvise and do some theater stuff that wasn't scripted. And it was founded by Bernie Sahlins, Howard Auck, and Paul Sills. And the three of them just decided that they were going to make theater every night. They were improvising, and then sometimes they would say, "We're tired of improvising. We did that scene a couple of nights ago. Let's do that scene again that we improvised." And sort of that became the way that we write, the way that we make everything here, is that they improvised, then they created a sketch show out of that, and they kept going and going and going. And in 1959, our first review opened. I believe it was called Excelsior. And it was just north of here, which is our current location on 1616. I think it was 1832 North Wells, and it became this kind of force. The way that and it's still how we make improv or how we make sketch shows today, is that we get suggestions from the audience, we improvise, and then we create sketches out of that, and then we formulate a sketch review, which is 2 acts with short scenes, songs, improvisation, and then once we're finished making the show, then it opens.
What do you do as the VP of Creative there?
So essentially, I'm the creative oversight for every single one of our shows, for everything that we put out. It doesn't mean that that I dictate what we do. I see myself as a steward of our process. Our process is very particular, as I mentioned. We have people coming up through our touring companies. They start improvising, they audition for us, they go through our touring companies, they write and perform and write and perform, and then they eventually come up to one of our resident stages, which is our main stage or our ETC stage. And I'm in charge of shepherding that forward. Every person who comes into our building, who goes through our programs, who auditions for us, who is a part of our companies, they have a very strong point of view and a very strong comedic take on the world. And my job is to do my best to not get in the way of that, but to help whatever it is they're doing reach the audience. So while I go in, I give notes. They're in process right now for our new show. And I go in and I give notes to the director and talk to them about, here's what I'd like to see more of. Here's a place where I feel like this particular thing might not be working. I don't give them the answers to it because so much of what we do is collaborative and it is improvisational. So what I tell them is, here's what I'm seeing, here's what I'm not seeing, here's what you could do more of. And that's sort of true across the board. Sometimes I direct some of the shows, and that is very similar to how I approach it with the actors. They'll pitch me a scene, and I will say, well, welcome to the fart parade. Might not be the best thing that we've ever done, but let's give it a shot. And then it turns into this like incredible satiric piece about the education system, so it's kind of wild. It's like how that stuff happens. But my job is to help everybody have a point of clarity in their work and be able to be funny and feel protected enough to take risks on stage and create the best possible shows. So that's sort of that's what I'm here to do, is sort of be a shepherd for that sort of stuff.
Talk about like all the work that you've done in theater and comedy.
It's so funny. So I graduated from the theater school at DePaul, and my first it was funny because like the whole first year we did Viola Spolin's games for the theater. So we never touched a script. We only did improv. And I was always the funny one in high school. And it was really interesting because in this work, you're not supposed, like, we were sort of yelled at if we were funny. It wasn't supposed to be for comedy's sake. It was all for process and for creating and that kind of thing. So it was just sort of like, don't be funny, do the exercises. That's what it was all about. And I graduated from there, and I immediately knew that what I wanted to do was create new theater. I love classic theater. I love plays. I'm a huge theater nerd, but I also wanted to make sure that we were making new things, like that when in the creative world, we're making new things. I auditioned for and got into comedy sports one of my first jobs, and that is all comedy, improvisation games. And I was so freaked out because for the first years I was here, I wasn't supposed to be funny, and then it was just like, well, now you be funny. It was so like, I don't know. I think I was not very good at it for a while. But I learned a ton in that situation about what it means to be in a room with an audience. Comedy sports is very much like, there's the adage, dying is easy, comedy is hard. Oh boy, is it? If you're trying to get people to laugh, it is daunting because if you failed, because they don't laugh, and that's the worst. So I learned a lot about how comedy can be, what it can be in a room with a group of people who are all together and we're all sort of laughing at the same thing. I mentioned that communal discovery earlier, and that's, to me, a lot of what comedy is especially if it's live. You do something on stage and everybody in the room, including you, discovers at that moment that this is like an aha, oh my gosh, this is hilarious. And so I learned a ton from that. And then I had my own theater company, and I started doing a lot of kind of wild improv type stuff. A long time ago, we did I had a theater company. I was the artistic director of a theater company called WNEP, and it was a how do I describe this? We would just make stuff and then put it up. Like, it was just constantly making stuff and putting it up. I would write a play and then we would just do it for 6 weeks. Was it good? I don't know, but we were just throwing stuff at the wall like, all the time. And I think that it was a real formative experience in terms of not being precious about content, putting things up, learning how to direct. I learned how to direct in that theater. And then we did one show that was called Postmortem, where we took an obituary from the Sun-Times and improvised that person's life decade by decade. Now, it wasn't done as comedy. It wasn't intended to be like, oh, this is hilarious and making fun of this person. We were doing it to honor this person and what the things were that they kind of left behind in the obituary. And it was actually an incredible show because of we were sort of taking this person's life or what we knew of it and trying to bring it out in a different way than anybody would have ever thought. So we weren't trying to be disrespectful. We were being, we were just trying something.
How did you choose what obituaries?
I think we may have gone to an audience member and said, point to one of these, and then did that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it was really, sometimes you get almost nothing, and sometimes you would get a whole bunch of information. And we would also know about because again, decade by decade, we would talk about the time period that person lived in. And so we would have music that was from that time period, if it was like the 60s or 70s. And then people would do monologues about what was going on in the world at that time. I can't believe we did this. This was insane. There was so much research that was done. It was, yeah. But it was actually quite beautiful and very risky. And I think that that also sort of taught me a lot about risk and what risk is not just like, yeah, bleh, it's not just everybody being kind of wild or ripping off their clothes and saying edgy, quote unquote, edgy stuff. It is about, you have to say, I want to make this thing, and then hopefully it's good, and I don't know. And to me, that is a risk. And I think that we don't always reward risk, but I think that for us, especially here at Second City, you have to take that flying leap. And so I was with them for a while. I'm also an artistic associate, not an ensemble member of the Neo-Futurists. Which, again, I also did Dada performance art for 10 years. So,
wow. You've done a lot.
I have. And a lot of it, what's funny about all of these things is the relationship to the audience, to me. One of the things that I love the most is when the people on stage and the people in the room, something happens on stage, and the entire audience has this emotional, audible response, whether it's laughter or there was a moment in a very recent Second City show called This Too Shall Slap, which I had directed, where somebody was playing a child, and they were 3 children, and they were playing on stage. It's one of my favorite scenes. And at one point, somebody hurt one of the boys' feelings. He said they were playing a game, and then one of the children says, "Oh, this is just a game for 2 people." And the kid, the person who was playing the kid who was left out, was just kind of looked down, and the whole room just every time goes, "Oh." And it was this incredible thing because they all know what it's like to feel left out. They know when children are sort of reacting in the ways that they're reacting and trying to be, have control, but then also be mean by accident. Like it was, and of course they made up and they were like best friends again and it was fine. But it was a really amazing moment of the whole room just every single time just going, oh, yeah. I feel that so hard.
Like for a show like that, in that case, you got a reaction. You got the reaction you were looking for, and also potentially the discovery of like it was, once you got it in front of an audience, even more impactful than you maybe expected. Do you then ever tweak or change the show if the first or second or third time you get it in front of an audience, it's not getting the laugh that you expected, or it's not hitting the beats you might expect it to hit? How much editing goes on after the fact?
Just to give you kind of a sense of what happens, I'll talk about this particular scene. It was called Starbucks Boys, and it was pitched by Adisa Williams, who was one of the performers, and so she had this idea of wanting to play these children. And so they improvised it. The three of them improvised it. And then there was a fourth who was the father, who wound up being terrified of his own children. But the three of them improvised it once. And it was very vulnerable for her and then vulnerable for them too, because you don't know how an audience is going to react to, adults playing children is always kind of hard. And so she improvised it once, and then the question is after that first improvisation. So they do it in front of an audience in what is called the set. So we have 2 acts of a show, and then there is, we call it our world famous third act, and that is the improv set. Typically, if we're not in process, it will just be an improvised third act. So they'll play some games, they'll do some long form improv. But if we're in process, which means we're making the new show, they improvise a scene. And then what I will do is we'll go backstage and I'll say, did you like that? Do you want to do that again? Because it is really essential that it's not just like, oh, that was perfect, do that. You're going to be doing that. I need to know that they feel strongly about it and that they want to do it. Maybe a couple days later, they'll put together sort of the beats. They'll look at the recording, because we record it every night. They'll look at the recording and then go back and do it again. Maybe with some notes that I give them. Take this beat, keep that one, don't, remove that one. I typically will let them kind of go through it a few times without too many notes, because I want them to sort of, I talk about writing as like being kind of like building a tent. Like you got to pull everything out of your backpack first in order to make the tent. And it won't look like a tent even when you put it on the ground. So they have to kind of pull everything out of their tent. So that means like doing it a couple of times. Then after that saying, okay, take this text from the first recording, this text from the second recording, mash them together, and let's see if we can create a scene out of it. And at this point, they will have been doing it in the set for like 2 or 3 times. But they've been doing the previous show that they've been working on, or they've been running for probably 9 months. I will take a scene out of that previous show, take the scene they've been improvising, and put it into the show. And I tend to call this fire testing. Like, you get a lot of goodwill in the improv set from the audience. They think it's improv, and they're all like, "Oh, great," because it is. They're still continuing to discover through improv. But if it's in the show, then it has to be legible enough to the audience that it still feels like it is a component of the larger show. So then they do that, and then they pull it out. And sometimes they do things, and like the audience is just like, no, don't like. And you're like, okay, well, let's look at what did work, and then bring it back. And we go through this for about 12 weeks of putting it in, taking it out, revising, putting it in, taking it out, and then sometimes we'll put it in and leave it in. and they'll over the course of the final few weeks tweak, 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 tweak until you get a very strong sense of like you really hone it down to its most concentrated and to me perfect version. And then once it opens, sometimes I will go back and give notes and say, you need the you've added too much stuff. It's not funny anymore. But like sometimes we're like they got to laugh on something else, and then suddenly the scene is like 20 minutes long, and I'm like, what are you doing? But in this, like in that instance of that particular scene, we edited it in rehearsal and then did it in the show. And sometimes the performer will say, well, I don't like the way that this worked out. And I'm like, great, let's find a different way. But generally speaking, that's kind of how the process is for all of the scenes. Like improvise, improvise again, improvise again. There is an implied script that happens as a result of that re-improvisation. And then we start to mold it so that it can be a part of the larger show.
Wow. So it's a significant editing process. Yeah. Sounds like.
Yes, because it has to live, it has to survive. I mean, we call our previous shows our archives. These are shows that, have had Stephen Colbert in them and Tina Fey and Amber Ruffin and like these luminaries of comedy that are a part of our history. Those scenes went through this same process that they have. And what's amazing is that those scenes still kill. Like, there's one scene, it's one of my favorite ones called Pictionary. And anybody who's listening to this who is a part of Second City knows what Pictionary is because it tours. Like, we put it on tour all the time. It's almost 40 years old.
Wow.
And wait, it's from 92. So 30? So, okay, fine. My math is terrible. 35 years old. I'm still like, well, 10 years ago. I know. It's over 30 years old. Like there are some things in it that are a little bit, dated in terms of reference point. But by and large, it works. And it kills every time. Like it is, and if it's like, it's one of those scenes where if it's not killing, you're doing it wrong. Like, but it is fascinating that's why I was saying earlier about comedy is subjective until it's not.
Yeah.
I think that there are things that are specific taste. But what's fascinating to me is that a scene from 35 years ago that have Paul Danilo and Steve Carell were in it. You have these people who did this scene and then it's still just like, it still lands. And not in a way of like, oh, that's fun that they're doing this old scene, because the audience doesn't know. It lands across generations, which is incredible. So part of what we are like thinking of, or what I'm thinking of, is comedy can be disposable, and you have to have some of that in there. You do have to have Welcome to the Fart Parade, but you also have to have something that is, hefty and weighty to balance it out. So I do think comedy is not that subjective.
Yeah.
That you get a group of people in a room and they all laugh at the exact same time. And I know where the laugh is. Like, I know exactly where, like, a laugh is coming, and you can hear it in the room. And those laughs still happen whether this group of people is doing the scene or this group of people is doing the scene. And so I think that there is some middle ground between comedy's subjectivity and its being objectively across many groups of people very funny.
You referenced several like very famous Second City alumni. Steve Carell, you said Amber Ruffin, Tina Fey. Also, you didn't mention, but Amy Poehler, Julia. I mean, there's so many. What do you think it is about Second City that is able to attract and nurture talent that then goes on to be, so successful?
I think it's a couple of things. I think improv as a mode of expression really unlocks things for people. And it also puts you into the frame of being able to collaborate more readily with other people. So much in the world, you have people going up to SNL, but then you also have like Tim Robinson has I Think You Should Leave and The Chair Company. You have Sam Richardson who is in Veep, and like all of these people who are in these shows, a lot of them have deep roots in an ensemble frame of mind. So you're collaborating across a lot of different points of view, a lot of different, and these people are funny to begin with. They already have this, I believe to varying degrees, everybody can be funny. Everybody has a sense of humor. But there is a level of, point of view and thinking about the world that I think we tend to attract, because comedy is a way of thinking about the world. It's a way of helping us live in the world in a way that is manageable. So I think that we attract people who are interested in ensemble work, who are interested in creating new things. And those ensembles, those people, even though they might not necessarily continue to be in the same ensembles when they leave here, they are able to leave and collaborate very broadly with a lot of different people and find ways to get their point of view across and also accept and build on another person's point of view. And I honestly think that that is a huge part of why so many icons of comedy have come from Second City, is that improvisational, ensemble-based work. Some people have said, what's fascinating to me is that, so we have a touring company and they go on the road and they do bits with each other. They call them van bits. Where they're like driving 4 hours or,
Sure.
Driving to Des Moines, and then and so they're in the car and then people start riffing off of each other. And it's also that ability to play those games in the van, to pull out fun things from other people while contributing. So I think that it's also that. It's that being able to work in a very high stress environment and pull out the things that are useful to you across all industries.
Who are Chicago comedians or Chicago performers that you wish more people knew about?
Stand-up wise, Adam Burke is one of my favorite stand-ups. Sam Rocha, Rocha. She is so funny and so smart. I saw a stand-up bit of hers not too long ago and was just like, oh my gosh, she's just so funny and so present in the room, and you just kind of want to go with her anywhere. So I loved her. There are so many improv comedians. Luc Prezant is incredible. Or Jake Prezant, excuse me. Jake. Like all of a sudden, all of the names are just sort of are just gobbledygook. I think he's fantastic. Arleta Hall is somebody, although I think she's probably going to be famous next week. But Arleta Hall is incredible, just a fantastic performer and just so whippet smart. Also, Adonis Holmes, who is one of my favorites. I'm just going to name everybody. Jordan Stafford is incredible. Again, these are some people that come to mind where I'm just like, everybody needs to go and look at them. Evan Mills, everybody needs to go look at them. So, yeah. And now I'm going to there'll be plenty of people who'll be like, why didn't you say my name? And I'm sorry it's not because I don't love you.
you referenced this a little bit before when talking about, you know, the Van bits, and the ability to play and the importance to play. Or maybe I'm now projecting on and kind of like reading into what you said, but I think a lot now, um, about a couple of things. Like, the world is super scary right now and like feels very heavy. Um, you know, we have talked to a lot of guests on this show, who are doing or not doing anything with comedy and not necessarily performance, but end up sort of like talking about and touching upon in the importance of like in real life community. And I would love to hear your thoughts about that and how you think about comedy and laughter and live performance and this idea of being in the same room with a bunch of strangers laughing at the same thing that everybody's seeing on stage.
The long arm of COVID is real. And in many ways, I feel like we've forgotten, I include myself in this too, forgotten how to be around other humans in a way that's, and it's kind of shocking how quickly that left all of us.
Yeah.
The ability to rub up against other people in the world and kind of be, and feel that friction that can be really productive. I think it made us less forgiving, less generous, generally speaking. I think people really try to cultivate that space a lot. And even so, it is proven, I think, harder to get people into that space of wanting to be around other people because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I think that there's so much ease in, oh, I'm just going to watch something on Netflix, or I'm just going to scroll, or all of those things are very easy, and it's hard to move out of that inertia of being, of sitting down, of sitting and just scrolling, or sitting and watching, or whatever that might be. And what's fascinating to me is how hard it can be to cultivate and experience joy. The world right now, and I feel this with our performers, I feel it with everybody, like everything feels hard and like sandpaper. Everything feels like sandpaper. Yeah. And, you know, there is a sense of helplessness because of just the way our world is at the moment, all of the horrible things that are happening. But what is amazing to me is still the number of people that come to see our shows. And I don't think that they're coming in to be like, you know what, I'd like to experience joy. I'm going to go to this. Like, I don't think people think that way. I think mostly they think in terms of, oh, let's have a night out and let's, you know, go see something that's fun. But I do think there is a huge need. And when people feel it, that electricity of being in a room together and laughing at the same thing, then suddenly everybody is like, oh, I'm not by myself. I'm not alone. I'm not lonesome. I'm in a room, and it's exhilarating to have those moments of just laughing together about something. And it's not even about escapism, because I don't think that comedy is an escape. I think it is a foundational need, because otherwise, what are we doing? It can't all be aging, bad parking, and fascism. Like, it has to be, there has to be something else good about being a human being. You know, and you have to have like other things like laughing and love and experiencing something new for the first time and eating something disgusting and laughing about what was disgusting and being hurt and having heartbreak, and then also realizing the silly things that happen because of that heartbreak. Like, all of those things are necessary. And I think that because of the way the world is right now, all of that sandpaper feeling can make us forget that there is other smoothness out there. I think everybody should be mandated to go and watch live comedy. because it actually makes things better.
I agree with you. What is coming up next for Second City? What are the shows that are coming up? Where should people, what do you want to talk about in terms of like what people can see next?
So we have our main stage show is currently in process. That's what we call our creation of the next show. And we have a title for it. It's called Pandemonium, Please Hold. And that is opening on May 6th. So they're still like changing things and tweaking things, but you can see like the show is different every night right now because different things are going in and out of the show. So like go and check it out. It is it's really exciting. And then you might see something in the set that like, well, that didn't work. Yeah. Or you might see something in the set that like 2 weeks later becomes the central focal point of the show. So that's happening. We also have another show. This is actually a big change for us in our ETC stage. We have a fully improvised 2-act show that is happening in the ETC, and it's called Improv Supernova. And I have seen this multiple times, and it's some of the best improv I've ever seen. This is when we're talking about the connection to the audience and being in a room with people, this is it. Like, it is a full experience that you truly will never see again, because they talk to the audience for like 15 minutes at the top of the show and ask them questions, and then use that for the whole rest of the show. And it's impressive. It's funny. It is a real tightrope, and I cannot recommend it enough. That will be running through the end of April, and then they're going to go into another process for a different type of show, which may be very similar to this, but they're still working out what those things will be. Plus, we have our best ofs that are happening and we have a Chicago-style show, which is our archives that pay tribute to Chicago, and
Nice.
that will be this summer.
Very fun. Cool. I always like to ask this at the end of every episode. When people come visit Jen, what are the things you tell them they have to do or see or eat when they're in Chicago?
Well, of course, I drag all of them to Second City. So everybody has to go to Second City. The museums are fantastic here. I think that they are, obviously the Art Institute and the MCA are among sort of the crown jewels. If you're looking for something off the beaten path, the Museum of Surgical Science,
Ooh, okay.
which is on Lakeshore, and it is fascinating. They have a recreation of an old pharmacy in there. It goes through and tells you like basically how surgery has evolved. It is an incredible place. So I will always tell people to go there because it's not typical, but it is very Chicago, because we love our history. We love our World's Fair from 1893.
Yeah.
We love being sort of the central focus of industry in the United States, and that one in particular really does sort of scratch that itch. So go there, absolutely.
Amazing. All right. Jen, thank you so much for spending all this time with us. This conversation was really fun. I was a little nervous coming in because I'm like, what if I'm not funny? This one needs to be super fun. So thank you for making it very fun.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm always a little bit worried. It's like,
And here's how comedy is really important.
and I'm like, I worry about that sometimes myself. So I'm glad that this worked out. This was a delight. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Notes from Chicago. This podcast is edited and produced by Tanisha Blakely. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to Notes from Chicago on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts.